Okay, all of you mouse and mice and hopefully not rat hunters. This is a 1998 Jeep Wrangler. I bought it new. Today is August of 2022. Started having problems recently. So, by recently, I mean after all these years. Um, there's my Tacoma up there, and I had mice getting into that guy. They were coming into the cab of the Tacoma through the glove box. And on those vehicles, there's a cab filter in there. So they were gaining access through the cab filter, which meant they were coming in through the vent system. And in my case, I found out on that one, looks like I fixed the problem already. They were coming in through where the water that goes in there drains out of the system. And on the Tacoma, you can actually gain access to this area, and it's made out of plastic. And there's just a plastic button that goes in here, and you just pop that out, pick this up, and the water drains through these holes if you stick your hand in there, and then you just stuff them with thick coarse steel wool, and that finally stopped the problem in that car. On this one, however, I thought I was finding nests in the cubby. I don't know what I did with it right now, but okay, so it's right here. I was finding nests in there a few years ago, but I just assumed they were coming in through the fan or something like that. Maybe the same system like the Tacoma problem, but it wasn't so far from what I can tell. They actually chewed a hole through the round boot that goes around the shifter, which comes out of the transmission. If you look down at the bottom, it's a very small hole when the boot is on there. So I stuffed it with steel wool, and that's what stopped it. And the reason I suspected it was there is because when this is on there, there's a void right here. There's this void right here, and that's it. That's how it comes out of the factory if you have this style. And when this was on there, there was always evidence, of their nest material that they were using. In my case, they were using Kleenex from the Kleenex box, and I would clean it up and it'd show up again and clean it up, and I kept looking. So finally I decided, okay, they must be coming in through here. So I went down there. I could see daylight through that grommet where they had chewed a small hole. So I've tried everything from glue traps, spring traps, even tried these electronic, sonic electronic things, and those worked for a week or two. Then they started dragging them like away. I stuffed one in here and they pulled it out, and I would clean up their mess, and it would grow, back up. It would come back up. They would piss again. There was shit. There was evidence. So I knew that wasn't working. Pretty much anything you buy at the store, I tried the sprays. They just stink up the car. They don't work. Nothing you buy at the store worked for me. So I recently removed this really quick. If you have this style, there's a screw in there. FYI, I couldn't find that hole, but I remembered over the years that, hey, I remember there was a screw in there, but there was so much grit in there that I couldn't see that there was 2 coins in there. So I used this kind of a knife to pop the coins out. And if you pop one and you don't see the screw, keep cleaning and fish for another coin, because that's what I had to do. 2 coins. Then you remove this boot, but first you got to remove this guy. I used this, but don't use this directly. You got to wrap this with a really thick fabric. In my case, I had to fold a piece twice over, and it was pretty thick because it was like jeans or shorts or something like that, because I gouged it. Now, if you care like I do, then you got to use a piece of rubber or thick fabric. If you don't care, then go ahead, take some pliers to it, and all you got to do is lefty-loosey. It'll come out. In my case, it was really hard. Some other guys online, it was also really hard. But I got it off. Then slide this off after you squeeze this together. Here's a close-up of it. There's teeth on it. I broke mine. hopefully you won't break yours. Okay, so going back to the problem at hand here, this is where they were coming in through. The rubber boot, they chewed so bad that I threw it out yesterday, and well, I don't have a picture of it to show you. This is aluminum window screen. Make sure you cut it big enough, about as wide as this is from here to here, maybe a little bit more, so that when you bring the edges in and you stick your screws in, there's plenty of room for you to fold it over like this, so that it's flexible enough for you to shift without you tearing it, and maybe giving more life to this before it tears from moving it back and forth. And then this is just a hose clamp, and I got one that's just barely bigger than this, because the first one was too big, and it was so big and it would squeeze around, but once it started getting really close to tightening around this, it kind of broke because it bent. So you got to buy one that barely fits around this guy and barely has enough room to squeeze the wire through it, or the screen through it. I washed everything. I took it out and hung it up and washed it for a long time, and it looks like it worked pretty good. But I also took the glove box off, and just FYI, there's a nest back in there. There's proof of the Kleenex. That's the residue I was finding. And what prompted me to look in here is that no matter how many times I would clean the little residue that was down here, I would come back and find more. And I was like, well, I took the Kleenex out finally, because I thought, okay, if I take the Kleenex box out, they won't have that material to make the nest. But why is there more? And I thought, well, there's got to be something stuffed up in there. So that's what prompted me to look in here, and there it is right there. So they go in here and they jump around, move around, or I don't know, maybe they try and make a different nest with that stuff, and that's why they leave it all over the place. So you might want to check in here. And the other place they were coming in for sure before I did this is through here. And here's some baby mouse shit right there. I don't think they're getting in, but I think they jump up here and try to get in there because they remember they could get in through here. But I stuffed steel wool. So another thing, they make bronze steel wool, I believe, and I don't know what other materials, but do not use, like I did, just the cheap metal steel wool, because it rusts, and I don't know if that's going to affect my paint over time. But FYI, okay, I'm going to remove these the first chance I get to see what other materials they sell that might not rust like this one. So that's where we're at. Don't think I missed anything, because this is pretty self-explanatory. Chewed boot equals something harder than a boot, and in my case it's this screen. So happy hunting to everyone, and good luck.